Namaskar. Good morning. Namaskar. Good morning. Welcome once again to the fresh course code MMPC 020 Business Ethics and CSR. I'm Dr. Siran Mukerji today with you, Additional Director at IGNOU Regional Center, Noida. We are going to begin today MMPC 020, which is titled as Business Ethics and Corporate Social Responsibility. So let's see what is corporate business ethics, what is corporate social responsibility. Let us see their relevance in the today's business world. Let us see how they affect the business environment, and we also look at the the differences between ethics. We know ethics. Sometimes we think that ethics and law, they are similar, so they are actually not similar. So we will also try to see the distinction, or the we try to distinguish between ethics and law, and we see how ethics are important for an organization. Well, the course structure of this new course code, MMPC 020, the course structure is, we have four blocks once again. We have block one, which is titled Ethics and Business. We have block two, which is titled Evolution and Concept of Corporate Social Responsibility. Now, let me tell you one thing here. Wherever I have used the acronym CSR, it stands, its full form is Corporate Social Responsibility. And then block three, we discuss the corporate social responsibility in the Indian context. That is how the business houses in India, the companies in India, the organizations in India, how they look at corporate social responsibility, what kind of practices there exist in Indian companies with regard to corporate social responsibility. And then block four, we discuss corporate social responsibility, implementation of corporate social responsibility, and its sustainability. See, any effort which is launched or initiated in any organization anywhere, that that particular effort will give long lasting result only when there are sustainable efforts. So block 4, we will see what kind of sustainable efforts, how the what kind of sustainable efforts are being undertaken by the Indian companies, and how the Indian companies are implementing corporate social responsibility in the Indian context, in the Indian business environment. So you see, there are four blocks, and today we begin with the first block, business and ethics. And in the first block, as you see, there are four units. In the second block, there are four units. In the third block, there are three units. And in the fourth block, again, there are three units. So we have a total of around, what do we see? We see 14, we have 14 units. And in the first session today, we are going to discuss the first and second unit. That is the introduction to business ethics, the differences between business ethics and law. And also, we will try to understand the background of ethics, the ethical studies, the concepts and theories of business ethics. So we move on. So what are the learning outcomes of MMPC 020? I'm sorry, it's mentioned here 012. It's MMPC 020, and that also the learning outcomes of the first block titled Ethics and Business. To understand well, as a result of the this particular session, or when we complete the first block of business and ethics, you would be able to understand the concept and importance of ethics in business, the different theories pertaining to ethics. You will be able to have a better understanding of the different approaches of overcoming ethical dilemmas in business. And also, you will discuss, you will understand, you will have a better level of comprehension of the ethical aspects of a business from an individual, business, and society's framework, that is from the IBS framework. Okay, introduction to, now we begin the block one, introduction to corporate management. There are four units in the first, introduction to ethics and business. There are four units. Unit 1, business ethics and overview. Unit 2, concepts and theories of business ethics. Unit 3 is ethical dilemmas, and unit 4 is ethics and business. Okay, now we start with the first unit, business ethics and overview. That is an introduction to business ethics. Now, what are the objectives of this particular unit? That is, at the end of this particular unit, what kind of knowledge are you going to gain of about business ethics? What kind of understanding you're going to have about business ethics? Well, at the end of this particular unit, you will be able to distinguish between ethics and law. That is, you know what is ethics, you know what is law. And generally, what we try to do is we think that they are synonymous, and we try to use these words interchangeably. Well, that is not right. So they have their own place in the society, society. The ethics and law, they have their own respective place in the society. They have their own respective place in the business organizations. So we will see what is the difference between ethics and laws in the organization. You would also have a better appreciation of the relevance of business ethics in the present era of globalization, privatization, and sustainability. So, then you will also, as a result of the first unit, understanding the first unit, you will be able to appreciate the relevance of business ethics education, because business ethic practices do exist, but until unless we don't make the employees aware, until unless we don't make the young managers aware, the future managers aware of the importance of ethics in the organization, the importance of ethics in the life, uh, we will not be able to implement business ethics in the organization. We will not be able to take ethical decision making. So it is very important that business ethics becomes an integral part of the education process. It is very essential that we educate and train, make the employees aware of the importance of business ethics, and not only make them aware but also make them implement the ethical policies, the ethical practices in the organization. And also you will be able to understand the distinction between shareholders approach and stakeholders approach to management. Well, business ethics and overview. Well, ethics comes from a Greek word which is ethos, which means character. So when we say this person does not have any ethics, this person lacks ethics, what do we mean by that? We basically mean that this person somewhere lacks the basic character required in that particular situation or that particular circumstance. It is also a discipline. See, we are studying business ethics. So it is a discipline that deals with what is good and what is bad, as well as moral duty and obligation. So, see, it is something which is much, much beyond law. When we are talking of moral duty and obligation, we are talking of moral duty and responsibility. So, the moment we say it is moral duty and responsibility, it is moral duty and obligation, then we are going much beyond the legal aspects of our duties, legal aspect of what is needed from us to be done. Ethics is also can also be defined as the embodiment of moral principles describing what is right and what is wrong in human action, as well as what ought to be done. See, there is something which is being done anyways, and there is also something which ought to be done. So there is one way of performing an act, one way of taking an action. The other way is one way of taking the right action. So when we say taking the right action as a result of ethical decision making, this is where business ethics comes to play an important role. So one is just doing the work, one is doing the work at the in a right way. So this is what ethics is all about. We have to understand that an organization without ethics cannot survive for very long. So whether ethics has an important role to play, whether it is in the organization, whether it is at the workplace, or it is at home, we have to be ethical in our practices. We have to be ethical in our way of life. We have to be ethical in our day-to-day way of life. We have to be ethical in our decisions. We have to be ethical in our actions, and our actions should be an example of ethical behavior. So as a result of this particular unit, you would be able to understand how important the concept of ethics is. And it's not only concept, it is the practice of ethics in our day-to-day life, whether it is at home, whether it is with people outside home, whether it is in the organization where we are working. Everywhere ethics has a very, very important role to play in order to make us true human beings. Just not human beings, we are all human beings, but we can say true human beings who add that extra humane touch to their action. Okay, ethics also refers to the consideration and application of frameworks, values, principles for developing moral awareness and guiding behavior and action. So it is also the extra, like sometimes we say that this person has got a very good friend who is so considerate, who is so generous, who has that, ethical values, who is a man of principles, like we tell for somebody, he is a man of principles. Now what does that mean? Being a man of principle means that you don't go by what is given in the books, in the sense you don't go by the written rules and regulations. You go a little ahead. Apart from the rules and regulations, what you just don't go by what you are supposed to do. That is, you don't go by the law, you don't go by the rules and regulations alone. You add that extra human touch to your work, to your behavior, to your communication, to your interaction with your peers, with your colleagues, with your family members, with your friends. So that's what makes you a person of principle, a man of principle. So this is what basically you see how important ethics is. And if you follow ethics at home, you can follow ethics in your workplace also. So it's just not if a person is following is very very ethical at home will become unethical in the office. That is not possible. A person has to follow ethics, has to be in the right path, has to understand his moral duties, his obligations towards the office, towards the organization, towards the workplace, towards his home, moral obligation towards his moral duties towards his friends, towards his relatives, towards his family members, towards his parents. So that is what makes a person complete. So this is what we understand by ethics in general, and of course business ethics in terms of ethical actions and decisions in the organization. That is business ethics. Okay, there are certain basic features, characteristics of business ethics. What are these basic or salient features or characteristics of business ethics? It is basically a kind of code of conduct. Now, code of conduct can be written, but when we talk of business ethics, it goes beyond written. There are certain things which are not written. So, the code of conduct, it is basically kind of a code of conduct. That is a type of business ethic, informs about the appropriate. Now, you know what we are supposed to do in the organization, how we are supposed to behave, how, like, we are supposed to come on time, we are supposed to leave the office on time. So, those things are written, but how we are going to behave with the others, like in the office, we should not, our any act of ours should not disturb our colleagues. Those things will not be written, those things are understood. So that would be kind of a tacit code of conduct that exists in every organization. We talk in low volume, we don't talk very loud, we don't argue with unnecessarily, we don't argue with our colleagues. So if in case we see that one of our colleague is not well, we immediately try to relieve that person of his duties. We say, okay, why don't you go home, you take rest, we'll take care of your desk today. So these are what, these are not written anywhere, they are understood. They are the code of conduct, they are the business ethics, which is informally existing in every organization. Then moral and social values. Business ethics are also the moral and social values in the organization, which I was talking to you all about. What, there are certain acts you're supposed to behave in a certain way. You're not supposed to have any kind of loud behavior. You're not supposed to shout at anybody. You're supposed to be polite. Now it's not written in any books. No policy manual, no mission statement, vision. Have you ever seen any vision statement or any policy manual wherein it says you are supposed to be polite with your colleagues? It's not mentioned anywhere. It is understood. It is human behavior. So that is also part of your ethics. Then protect the stakeholders. It is also ethical that we protect all our stakeholders, whether it is the customers, whether it is suppliers, whether it is our consumers, whether it is our let's say our advisors, all our employees, all the families of our employees. See, organization is just not also responsible for the protection and safety of the employees. In a way, indirectly, it is also responsible for the safety and protection of the family members, because if you are looking after the employees well, indirectly you are also looking after the family members well. Then acts as a basic framework of behavior. It defines the social, cultural, economic, legal, ecological framework for the company to operate. What are the social virtues? Like we say, there are social virtues. There are certain cultural ethos which we have to follow. There are certain religious norms which we have to follow in the organization. That's a kind of mark of respect to the other people who are there in the organization. So this is yet another very important feature of business ethics. Then it is also voluntary. Say, you're not, like for example, you're not supposed to speak very loudly in your room, so that you don't disturb the employees in the adjacent room. So what is that? Is it going to be written somewhere? No, it is voluntary. You're expected to do it. It is not something which is coercive. It is not something that you have been told, it has been enforced on you. No, there are certain basic rules and regulations which are enforced, but beyond those rules and regulations, there are certain tacit ways of understanding, ways of behaving, that forms a part of your voluntary actions. You're supposed to do it voluntarily. You're supposed to do it on your own. You're supposed to do it. Nobody will enforce it on you. Then it also needs education and training. As I said, we need to educate the people. We need to educate everybody regarding what kind of ethical behavior they are supposed to act upon. We have to implement. They sometimes, you also have, we say that we have certain workshops, certain seminars, certain webinars are organized in the organizations, which are, let's say, on soft skills: how to behave with others, how to behave in peer group, how to manage group dynamics. Now, these are what? These are not written anywhere. But yes, these workshops have a very, very important role to play in the organization in developing good and healthy, fruitful peer group relationships. So that the implementation of adequate ethical norms in the organization, that requires education and training. You have to make, if the people are not aware of it, see, because it might just be possible that, in an MNC, there, every country, it is operating at so many different countries. Now every country has its own culture, has its own social background, has its own economic, legal background, legal framework. So a person from A country is posted to B country. Now that person has to be sensitized about the local norms, about the local ethos, about the local followings, about the local socio-cultural practices. So until unless we don't make them aware, how would they know? At times, what happens is, when a person is transferred from one place to a different place, one country to another country, not within the same country, but one country to another country. Before the person reaches there, he is given a thorough orientation. Now, thorough orientation not of the work, because he is, as it is, he is very good at his work. That's why maybe he's being sent to another country to head a particular division. He might be very good in his work, but we need to sensitize him about the requirements, the social requirements, the cultural requirements of that particular country. How you need to behave with the people there. Otherwise, people will take offense of it. He will not be accepted in the organization there. Then, yet another a business ethic feature is, it is relative in nature. Now, an act which is correct according to me might not be correct according to you. An act which is appropriate in a particular situation might not be appropriate in another situation. So it is relative. It changes from place to place, from situation to situation. It is situational. But then basic ethics remain the same. How you're supposed to behave, that remains the same. Okay, what is the relevance of business ethics? It has very, very wide relevance. See, it helps in, if you are following ethical practices in the business, if you are following ethical practices in the organization, then you will have customer loyalty. That is, if you are trying to provide the goods and services as per the specifications that you have mentioned, that is again ethical, right? Suppose you say that this particular pack has got 100 gram of tea, and you're actually giving the customer 100 gram of tea, the customer will remain satisfied. Whereas if you say that this pack has got 100 gram of tea and you are giving 70 gram of tea, so the customer, maybe at that point of time, the customer will not realize. But once he reaches home, he sees the pack, he would realize that yes, I have been cheated. I have not been given what I was supposed to be given. Or for that matter, suppose there's a particular quality of clothing that you are mentioning in the specifications, and what you are actually supplying to the customer, that is something different. Maybe the same print, same cloth, everything is the same material, but the quality varies. So that means what? You are not following the ethical practices of business. So do you think you will have customer loyalty? You will not have customer loyalty. So for long lasting, for sustainability, sustainable customer loyalty, for sustainable competitive advantage, for sustainable business dealings, we have to have um, business ethics in doing our business. Then it also enhances, obviously enhances company reputation. If you see that you have large number of customers or consumers who, from the very beginning, from the very launch of a particular product, even now the product is, let's say, 10-year old, still the customer is not changing, the brand is not changing his loyalty. So that is what, that enhances your reputation. We say that X company provides very good quality food. Suppose X restaurant provides very good quality food, although this restaurant is now into existence for the last 25 years, but still whatever we used to have 10 years back, we're still getting the same quality of food there. It has not changed. So, what does that mean? You're carrying the reputation. That means what? You are following the ethical practices that is required of a good company. It retains good employees. Obviously the employees would also be comfortable. If you are following good ethical practices, if you are following sound ethical practices with your customers, then you would be having, that means what, your organization believes in following ethics. Your organization is very well grounded in following the right kind of behavior. It thinks that it is morally obliged to provide that kind of services, goods and services, to the customers. So if that exists as a practice, that would exist as a practice within the organization also. So the employees would also feel very satisfied, and you will have very less attrition rate in the organization. Also, it helps in developing a very conducive and healthy working environment. And once you see, if you are providing products, because nowadays, see, customers are very aware. They know their rights, they know their what they are supposed to get. They know about the products, they just don't order products like that. So the moment you give them right quality product, they are happy. But the moment they see that this is not the kind of product which I had ordered, immediately you are inviting trouble for yourself. So what happens is, then in that case, it we also see that, so many customers nowadays, they're not satisfied with the product that they get, they're not satisfied with the services they get, and they take legal recourse. And but if you are following ethical practices, if you're doing the things right, if you're providing the goods as per the specifications, you are providing them not only the goods but even after sales service as per the specifications, then you are said to be more ethical, and you can avoid legal hassles in the organization. Now, let's see what is the distinction between business ethics and law. Now, ethics, as I said, ethics and law, they differ a lot. Law is the basic code of conduct. It is the basic, something that is written in black and white. Ethics not limited, and ethics is not limited to that black and white rule book. Law can be kind of a rule book, what is written there, what you are supposed to do, the minimum code of conduct that you are supposed to do, that is entailed in the legal framework of the organization. Whereas ethics is not bound there. Ethics goes a step beyond that, a step ahead of where the legal requirements, legal obligations end. Ethics go a level beyond that. So ethic covers moral, ethical questions, which is not there in legal. Like for example, I said, you are supposed to behave in a particular manner in the organization. Now that is not written as a part of legal code. Of course, legal is like, you are being given 30. Let's say you are being given 30 days vacation in the organization in a year per annum. You break that rule and you take 60 days. Now there you're breaching the legal terms. But then suppose if it is written that your office timings are 9:30 to 6 and you don't report at 9:30, so that is again you are breaching the legal terms. But then when you are in the office, you are expected to behave in a particular way. So that is where ethics has a role to play. That is what is ethics all about. Then law issues they are for basically regulatory purpose, for ensuring civic order in the society. But whereas ethics is not that. Business law with ethics will make the whole system in order. Ethics and morality closely related to the existing power structure. Now, law is not about morality basically. See, legal norms are of course there, but to interpret it and to behave and abide by it, that is the basic. But then there are certain terms and conditions which is not written, which we have to follow. That comes under the purview of business ethics. Now, what is the effect of globalization on business ethics? Well, the ethical landscape nowadays, what has happened is business ethics, as I said earlier, the organizations were local organizations. The companies, they would operate within, let's say, within only a particular periphery. They had only a particular short or very small geographical jurisdiction. Let's say the company was only supplying goods or services within India, or let's say not only within India, they were supplying goods and services only in the northern part of the India. Now, see, with liberalization policies, with globalization policies, with privatization policies, things have changed. So the organizations with globalization policies, the organizations have all opened up. They are now not only functioning within the jurisdiction of a very small geographical area, they are functioning all across the globe. So when they are functioning all across the globe, we have to see what kind of ethical requirements we need to fulfill, because every country will have its own set of written rules and regulations, that is a legal code, and it would have certain unwritten, or let's say certain informal understanding of how one should behave. So the landscape has completely changed with regard to ethical norms. Then overseas operations need, as I've already explained to you, overseas operations need more cultural sensitization. As I said, every country has its own culture, has its own social structure, has different kinds of religious paths that they follow, and we have to respect that. And in order to respect that, we should be sensitized. We need proper education and training. The employees have to be properly trained so that they don't violate these tacit, informal, or non-written ethical codes that exist in that environment, social environment. Then lack of familiarity with legal and political framework also leads to ethical breaches. See, it's not only the social and cultural and the religious ethos. The employees also have to be oriented with the legal and political framework. So if they are not oriented when they move to different countries for operating there, for functioning from there, then it also leads to ethical breaches. Then we need the business ethics to be trained to the young managers. Need for business ethics education for young managers to be sensitized to the ecosystem. See, every ecosystem is different, as I said. The entire environment is different, external environment is different. So we need to train, we need to orient the young managers, we need to train, we need to orient, we need to make them understand the basic differences, the nuances of the new working environment where they're moving to. Then, so that, whose responsibility does it become? It becomes the responsibility of the company, which is sending these employees to different areas, to different places. So there is more of corporate responsibility. At times nowadays, it's not only orientation is not only in terms of social orientation, cultural orientation. There's also, the employees are also given basic training on the language also. There is language training also, because there are some countries wherein, people, they hardly know English as a foreign language. They hardly know English. Now if you are sending your employees to work there, they know English, whereas the local people, they don't know English. Maybe let's say they're speaking in Swahili. So you need to, at times nowadays, they also provided training, basic knowledge of basic language, or let's say the basic knowledge of the language. They are provided the basic knowledge of the language, so that they are able to go there, they are able to mix up with the local people, they are able to kind of gel in with the local environment and not violate any ethics. Okay, now we move to the second unit, which is pertaining to concepts and theories of business ethics. Now, at the end of this unit, what we will be able to understand, what we will be able to know, what we'll be able to, how will we get more sensitized about there are, number of theories pertaining to business ethics, so that we're going to have a proper understanding. We'll be able to see what kind of theories exist for business ethics. So at the end of this unit, you will be able to understand the relevance of basic ethical frameworks in dealing with dilemmas. There are a number of dilemmas in the office. So what kind of dilemmas exist, and how with ethics we are able to handle these dilemmas. Then appreciate the basic ethical approaches in ethical decision making. Develop a critical, you will also be able to develop a critical overview of the traditional ethical approaches. So, there are traditional theories, traditional ethical approaches, and also there are contemporary approaches. So in this particular unit, we are going to study in detail the theories, the traditional theories, traditional approaches to ethics, business ethics, and also we're going to study the contemporary approaches to business ethics. You would also be able to develop an awareness of some of the contemporary views. That's what I said, that there are two kinds of approaches. There are the traditional classical approaches to business ethics, and then there are the modern approaches to business ethics. So you would also have an awareness of some of the contemporary views on ethical theories of business. Let's move on. Well, as I said, this second unit is basically concentrating on theories of business ethics. So concept of business ethics, we've already discussed about it in brief in the previous unit. Now in this particular unit, we are going to discuss the theories of business ethics. See, the ethical theories are, there are three levels, three approaches. One is the traditional approach, second is the contemporary approach, and third is the postmodern approach to understanding ethical theories. Now, the traditional approach, there are basically two two views of that. One is the consequential or the teleological views, and then there is the non-consequential or deontological views. Consequential or theological views also has the understanding of ethics in terms of egoism, utilitarianism, and justice as fairness. And deontological view of ethical theories relates to ethics of duties and ethics of rights. Contemporary theories, ethical theories, they explain ethics in terms of virtues, feminist, and discourse. So now let us do one thing. Let us try to understand all these theories much more in detail one by one. Okay, we begin with the first one, that is the traditional theory. Traditional ethical theories. Now, traditional ethical theories, they basically, there are two schools of traditional ethical theories, as we saw here: consequential or teleological theories, and then there are the non-consequential or deontological school of thought. Now, consequentialism or teleology. Now, what does teleology mean? It is a typical term. Teleology is derived from the word teleos, which means consequences or purpose of our judgment or action. And logos means studies. So, teleology is basically the study of the outcome. When we try to judge our actions in terms of the outcome of our actions, of our activities, so it will be kind of action based or outcome based. What is the outcome? What is the result of our action? That comes under consequentialism. As I said, what is the consequence? If we do this, consequently, what will happen? So now that what will happen basically comes under traditional ethical theory. It comes under teleology. It derives their name from the consequences of the moral judgment we make, and then the actions we perform in resolving ethical dilemmas. So if there is a kind of dilemma, should I do this or should I not do it? There's a kind of confusion, mind. Whenever there is an action that we need to perform, rather, we always have pros and cons. We always have yes and no. We always think whether to do it or not to do it. So the result of doing it, suppose we say yes, we do it. So the result, the outcome of our action, that basically is what we discussing in consequentialism school of ethical theories. Ethical decision making is based on, as I said, is based on consequences or outcomes. So it is outcome based. I'll give you an example of that. First, we go on to study a little detail, and then I'll give you an example. Now, ideas of this teleological moral system. This is all morality. It's a moral system. When we're talking of ethics, we're talking of the moral. So, egoism, in ethical egoism, the actions that lead to greatest good of the greatest number are morally desired. So, as per this school of thought, what do they say? They say that try to do anything wherein the outcome gives maximum benefit to maximum number of people. So try to do your work in such a way in the organization that the result of your work, the result of your action, the activities that you are performing, the results of that activity gives maximum benefit to maximum number of, whether it is employees or it is the customers. The second concept, the second idea of theological moral system is with related to utilitarianism. Now, this was founded by the famous British philosophers Jeremy Bentham and John Stuart Mill. Now, what did Jeremy Bentham say? Jeremy Bentham said, human being follow those actions that give pleasure and avoid those that give pain. So that means what? We try to do those activities, result of which is pleasure. And we always try to avoid those activities that causes pain. So in this case, what would be ethical? Ethical activities, ethical moral system would be that wherein we should see that we are whatever we are doing, that should not cause pain to anybody else, or it should not cause pain to us. That is basically what Bentham said about utilitarianism school of thought for teleological moral system. However, what did John Stuart Mill say? That it is not about quantity, it is about quality. Quality of pleasure matters. So it's just not that, we get the uh, whatever we are doing, the results they give us happiness for, let's say, normal kind of satisfaction for the next 10 hours. No, John Stuart Mill says what is ethical? Ethical is that even if you get satisfaction, don't look for satisfaction for 10 hours, look for satisfaction for 1 hour. So if by doing a particular action, if you feel happy, you feel you are able to provide good kind of services to 10 people and not 100 persons, that will be ethical, that will be considered to be, that action will be considered to be ethical. The third is distributive justice. Now what is this thought? That is according to philosopher John Rawls, the criteria for ethical decision making should be distributive justice, that is identified idea of justice with fairness. That is, we should be fair. If we are providing one kind of service to one customer, we should be providing the same kind of service to all our customers. Then it is considered to be ethical service. Or ethical decisions are those that lead to equitable, that's what I said, equitable distribution of goods and services. It's not that there should not be any disparity. It's not that, some people are getting all the let's say the pleasures of life, some people are getting best quality products, best quality services, they're enjoying their life like anything, whereas there are another segment in the society which are completely have nots. Then that is unethical as per John Rawls. Then we have the second non-consequentialism, or which is called the deontology school of thought. Now, what does deontology mean? Like, for example, we had discussed teleology. Now we discuss deontology. Deontology, the word deontology, the term deontology is derived from deont. What does deont mean? Deont means duty or responsibility. Logos, as usual, means studies. So that in this case, in this school of thought, it advocates for moral judgment or action based on the sense of duty and responsibility. So it is basically our sense of duty and responsibility that judges how ethical we are. Means that, what does that mean? It means the means take priority over ends and consequences. That is action, the outcome is not important. How we are doing it, that is more important. The ultimate pleasure is not important, but the path to the pleasure is more important as per deontology. It is our duties that we are performing, our responsibilities. If we are able to fulfill our duties, we are able to fulfill our responsibilities that we are supposed to do. That means we are ethical. We have done our duty, but at the end of the day, we see that we're not getting the desired results. Doesn't matter. You have performed your duty. So, doing the work is in your hands, results not in your hands. That is basically what we are talking of, non-consequentialism. That is, the consequence of your activity, consequence of your action is not known to you. You don't know what results, what outcomes will come, but you should be happy, you should be satisfied that you have done the work the way you were expected to do. Results could be anything. There could be extraneous factors which affect the results, which is beyond your control. Now, in this case, we have the famous German philosopher Immanuel Kant said that moral concept of goodwill determines the rightness of an act rather than its consequences. The goodwill that you are doing, the good that you are doing for the people, in the organization, the good that you are doing towards your employees, towards your consumers, that is more important. That is more important rather than the result of that. Result obviously would be good, but then there are certain, sometimes, there are certain circumstances which are beyond our control. So even if we have put in the best of our effort, we are not we don't get those the desired results. So that is beyond your control. You can't help it. You did your best. Like for example, a student in the examination. Now the student has given his best. He has studied very hard, but then let's say on the very day of the examination he falls sick. So is it his fault? It is not his fault. Anybody could fall sick. So that what is basically what comes under the school of thought of non-consequentialism or deontology. Now here I will give you a very small example. Like we exam is being conducted in a class. The invigilator is there. He is very strict. So till the time and the students know they're not supposed to cheat. This example is given in your course material also. Let me tell you that the students know that they're not supposed to cheat. But then the moment that the teacher goes out, the invigilator goes out, the student, they say that cheating is fair, we will cheat because the outcome is we're going to do we will cheat so that we are able to solve our questions. So that is consequentialism. Whereas non-consequentialism is wherein the students, they say that no, invigilator has gone out. It is our moral duty that we should not cheat. Moral duty is we are supposed to give our exams. We are not supposed to copy from others. We are not supposed to copy from any other source. So that is the action. That is not the outcome. So this is the basic difference between consequentialism and non-consequentialism school of ethical theories. Now, the third one, I'll go back to the chart once again. See, we discussed the traditional, wherein we discussed the consequential and non-consequential, and inconsequential, we discussed egoism, utilitarianism, justice as fairness. In non-consequentialism, we said it's basically ethics and rights, duties and rights that matters. So this we have already discussed. Now we are going into to study the second approach, that is the contemporary approach. So contemporary approach. Now, there are three prominent approaches in the contemporary approach. It is the feminist ethics, the discourse ethics, and the postmodern ethics. Now, what is the feminist ethics? The feminist ethics, or the approach, contemporary approach, wherein we're discussing feminist ethics. As per the feminist ethics, most of the existing ethical theories are based on ethical orientations of men. What what men think is right or wrong, that everybody is supposed to do. That is basically related to the feminist ethics. It doesn't see, that means there is some inherent gender bias. So what is ethical, what is unethical? Who decides? The men decides, and men decide in the society, as per the contemporary approach of feminist ethics. So, and as per the feminist ethics, this particular approach, the women are more caring than men. Ethical orientation is determined by ethics of care. So they say that it believes that the women are more caring than men. Men are not that caring. So it is the ethics, the women are considered to be more ethical. This is the second postulate of the feminist ethics. The third postulate is organized life as individuals deeply enmeshed in interpersonal relationship. There is always an organized life. Why? Because individuals, the people, each person is deeply enmeshed, is deeply involved in different relationships. So that is what organizes the life. And that is what determines the ethics. So being ethical or not ethical, basically is determined by how deeply we are related with other people. That determines our ethics. Then the feminist ethics speaks of ethics of care, recognition of the unique moral voice of women, and stresses human relationships and emotion based virtues. So basically, the feminist ethics approach, contemporary approach to understanding uh, business ethics is, it basically looks at care, consideration, it looks at uh, morality of the moral voice of the woman, it looks at, it stresses upon the human relationship, it stresses upon the emotions, the virtues, emotion based virtues, all that becomes part of the feminist ethics. And organizations basically, this particular thought believes that organizations are should be devoid of gender bias. That is what men say should not become the ethics, the rule of the land. The second is the discourse ethics, wherein they say that anything that needs to be decided, any ethical thought that needs to be implemented, should be as a result of detailed discussion amongst all the stakeholders, amongst all the people who are going to be affected by this particular ethical decision making. So it is adoption of norms only after a thorough and rational reflection of the impact of ethical conflicts on all the relevant stakeholders. It is dynamic because it keeps on changing. Today, we might feel that yes, this course of action is correct. This is how we should all behave with each other so as to get that particular result. Tomorrow, we move to a different organization, or we move within the organization, we move to a different country. Now, by the influence of the external environment, our norms would change. So there we say that yes, here we see that by 5 o'clock people wind up. 5 o'clock is the closing time. So we also have to change ourselves accordingly. Then stakeholders meet for norm generation, negotiate, and find a peaceful settlement to disputes. So, this is basically, as I said, discourse ethics. That is, any decision that is taken, any ethical decision making done, any kind of resolution, any problem that we try to resolve, ethically, it is as a result of detailed discussion, detailed discourse. That means it is participative. We believe that everybody should be involved in it. Everyone should be involved in this kind of decision. Why? Because if you are involved in this kind of decision, you would be a part of the decision, and implementing such a decision would be much more easier. Then corporate social responsibility, environmental ethics, creation of shared values, more relevant in managerial decision making. So, and it is also, since we are following a process, we are following a process. Naturally, negotiation doesn't happen without a set time, let's say an appointment. We all follow a particular routine. So naturally, it becomes a social obligation for everybody to follow that. So, and that would be besides the legal obligations, besides the legal rules and regulations. This would be over and above the legal obligations that fall upon the employees to follow. Now, the postmodern perspectives. This is the third. Let's go back to the chart so that you are able to relate. Traditional, contemporary. We discussed the contemporary. Now we discuss the postmodern ethical theories. Okay, postmodern ethical theories. Postmodern perspective is, as the term suggests, postmodern perspective is opposed to various theoretical approaches that emerged in modern Europe ever since the Reformation, Enlightenment, and Renaissance period. So, whatever these theories that we have studied so far, these theories, like the traditional theories we studied, the contemporary approaches we studied to ethical decision making, to ethics, business ethics, the postmodern perspective completely opposes that. What does it say? It says everything is relative. There is no standard set procedure for following ethics. It changes from situation to situation. It is situational. An approach that views morality as a byproduct of our emotional impulse. Emotional impulse will keep on changing. Based on the situation, we'll be having different impulses. We become impulsive. The cues that we get, and as a result of those cues, how we react, that keeps on changing. So, how ethics or morality can remain the same? It will change. Basic ethics will remain, but then the same set of rules and regulations cannot be implemented across the board. It will change. Because why? Because morality is considered as a byproduct of our emotional impulses. So is basically emotions that governs morality. That is what is as per the postmodern perspectives of business ethics. It calls for questioning the established norms and practices and following the inner convictions and the gut feeling of the individual concerned. There might be a situation where which might not give you pleasure, but in a different situation you might find derive pleasure. There might be a certain, like you're very hungry, a plate of food, this particular plate of food, if you're very hungry you would love that food. If you're not hungry, you would not. You say, what is this? There's no salt in this. The food is too spicy. There's too much of oil in it, or let's say it is very bland. So from situation to situation, how your inner convictions are, how your inner thoughts are, how your inner beliefs are, you follow your inner beliefs, and how based on the inner beliefs you act in a certain way, you perform in a certain way. So you don't have to, as per the postmodern perspectives, human beings absolutely don't follow the established norms and practices. They go by their inner gut feeling. Now, what are the limitations? Limitations of existing theories. Now, all these theories, they basically provide minimal guidance. They don't, they provide situational guidance. They don't take a holistic view of the whole situation. They fail to reflect upon complex business situations. So they have all these rules, regulate all these approaches, these theories. They have tried to simplify a very complex concept of ethics, but it doesn't work like that. It doesn't really work like that. So the business situation as such is very complex. So it will have uh, it will be influenced by different factors, and accordingly the situation will change, and accordingly the people will behave. So we cannot expect a person to behave in a certain manner all the time. So, but then this is not basically what is proposed by all these theories that we studied just now, where they are unable to handle issues like gender bias in the workplace or industry specific decision making situations. These theories are not able to understand. They're not able to explain at all. They are unable to address also what constitutes unethical compensation. Like, sometimes we see that there are certain, let's say certain managing directors, or there are certain, let's say people from the top management, they are given so much of packages. So they might be possible that the employees, they might even question that why we getting only 20,000 whereas that person is getting 20 cr. So all these theories, they are not able to explain such kind of discriminatory acts. Then human functions with bounded moral rationality. There's also something called bounded moral rationality. Due to human beings have, because why bounded? Moral rationality is there, of course. Everybody is morally rational, but then it is all bounded. Why? Because our thought process is limited. Ethical theories have limited capacity to capture moral truth. Economic systems are dynamic with no fixed set of rules and regulation making ethical do's and don'ts. It also leads to temporal and spatial differences. We things are very abstract. So when things all around is very abstract, how can we justify that? Well, friends, we come to the end of the session today. In the next week, we will discuss the remaining two units of Block 1, that is, ethical dilemmas and ethics in business. I wish you all the best. Have a nice day and a very fruitful academic engagement in the future. Namaskar. Thank you so much. Bye bye.